The town that never sleeps. Ethan Cole had lived in Willow Creek for 10 years, long enough to know its quiet streets, its Friday night football games, and the way gossip traveled faster than the school bus. By day, he was the town's high school history teacher, a calm man with a calm life, or so everyone thought. It was a Tuesday when the first sign appeared. Spray-painted across the brick wall of the old train depot was a symbol, a spiral that twisted inward, sharp as a blade. Beneath it, in hurried black paint, someone had scrawled, "The night is coming." The sheriff's department dismissed it as a prank, but Ethan couldn't. Not because of what it said, but because he'd seen that spiral before. It had been carved into the floor of a cabin he'd once woken up in, 12 years ago, with no memory of how he'd gotten there. That night, long after the rest of the town had gone to bed, Ethan got into his car and drove to the depot. The air smelled of rain and rust. He ran his hand over the wall, tracing the symbol's curve. His pulse quickened. "Out late, teacher." He turned. A woman leaned against the corner of the building, cigarette in hand. Her leather jacket caught the light of the single street lamp. "Just curious," Ethan said carefully. "You?" "I'm always curious." She flicked her cigarette into a puddle. "Name's Claire." "You're staring at that thing like it's supposed to mean something." "It doesn't," Ethan lied. Claire smirked, like she could see through him. "Sure. Well, you're not the only one. That same symbol popped up in New Haven last month. 3 weeks later, a man disappeared." Ethan felt the cold slide into his bones. "How do you know that?" "Because I was there." The next morning, Ethan stood in front of his students, chalk in hand, but the lesson on the Reconstruction era felt like someone else's voice. The spiral haunted him. After school, he drove out past the last row of houses, to the woods. The cabin wasn't on any map, but he remembered the way like muscle memory. It was still there. Dusty, silent, its windows broken. Inside, the carved spiral waited on the floorboards. He knelt down, running his fingers across it. Then he heard footsteps behind him. "You really shouldn't be here." It was Claire. She stepped inside, her boots crunching over glass. "You were there before, weren't you?" "This cabin." Ethan hesitated. "I woke up here once. Years ago." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Then you're part of this, whether you know it or not." Lightning flashed outside, throwing their shadows against the wall. And for just a moment, Ethan thought he saw a third shadow, tall and wrong, standing in the corner. When the thunder rolled, the shadow was gone. "Meet me tomorrow night," Claire said. "There's something you need to see." She left as quickly as she came. That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, wondering why his hands were shaking. Wondering why the word spiral kept repeating in his mind until it didn't sound like a word at all. The next evening, Claire drove him to the edge of town, to an abandoned motel whose sign still buzzed faintly. In one of the rooms, she showed him a wall covered in photographs, news clippings of missing people, drawings of the spiral, maps with red thread connecting cities. "This is bigger than Willow Creek," she said. "Every time the spiral shows up, someone vanishes. And sometimes, they come back, different." "Different how?" "They talk about the night like it's alive. Like it's hunting." Ethan swallowed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're next," Claire said. And then the lights went out. Shadows on Main Street. When the lights went out, Ethan's first instinct was to reach for the door, but Claire grabbed his wrist. "Don't," she whispered. Something moved in the dark. Not footsteps exactly, more like the air itself was sliding across the room. A low hum filled Ethan's ears, as though the motel was holding its breath. Then, just as suddenly, the lights flickered back on. The photographs on the wall were gone. Every single one. "What the hell just happened?" Ethan said, backing away from the bare wall. Claire was pale, her jaw clenched. "You just saw it. The night doesn't like to be watched." "The night?" "That's what I call it," she said. "Call it whatever you want." It's real. It's been following me since New Haven. Ethan wasn't sure which scared him more, the empty wall, or the way she said it like it was a fact. They left the motel, neither of them speaking until they were back in town. Main Street was quiet, all the shops closed except for the diner. The neon sign buzzed overhead. Inside, the smell of coffee and fried eggs made everything feel almost normal. Almost. Claire slid into a booth and dropped a stack of papers onto the table. These are copies. I keep the originals hidden. They show every spiral reported in the last 5 years. Look at the pattern. Ethan spread out the pages. Each spiral was marked on a map: Boston, New Haven, Chicago, Denver, and now Willow Creek. They're getting closer together, he said. Yeah. Like it's moving. Before Ethan could respond, the bell over the door jingled. Sheriff Barnes walked in, nodding at them as he headed for the counter. Claire leaned forward. Does he know about you? No, Ethan said quickly. And he won't. But Barnes didn't order coffee. He walked straight to their booth. Evening, Cole, he said. Mind stepping outside for a word? Ethan glanced at Claire, then followed him out into the cool night air. You were out by the depot last night, Barnes said. Someone saw your car. Just checking it out, Ethan said. Curiosity. Curiosity's a dangerous thing, son. Barnes studied him for a long moment. Stay out of trouble. When the sheriff left, Ethan stood there for a minute, trying to steady his breathing. He hadn't told anyone about the cabin, or the symbol, or the night 12 years ago. And yet Barnes had looked at him like he knew something. Back in the diner, Claire was gone. In her place was a small piece of paper, folded once. It read, "Meet me tomorrow. Midnight. The bridge." Ethan showed up at the old bridge on the edge of town just before midnight. The moon was high, casting silver light on the water below. Claire was waiting, cigarette glowing in the dark. You sure you want to keep going down this road? She asked. I don't have a choice anymore, Ethan said. She nodded, then handed him a file. Inside were reports of a man named Daniel Rourke, a missing person from Denver. The photos showed a man with the same spiral scar on his wrist that Ethan had. Ethan's stomach turned cold. Who is he? Best guess. The one who came before you, Claire said. And if we don't figure out what this thing wants, you're going to end up just like him. Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness. A black SUV pulled up at the far end of the bridge. Two men got out, dressed in plain black clothes, faces shadowed. Run, Claire said. They sprinted off the bridge as the men gave chase. Ethan's heart pounded as they tore through the woods, branches slapping against his arms. By the time they reached Ethan's car, the SUV was gone. Claire leaned against the hood, catching her breath. Now you understand, she said. This isn't just some symbol. Someone's protecting it. Or hunting it. And now they're hunting you too. Ethan stared back toward the bridge, where the night was as still as glass. Somewhere out there, someone knew why the spiral had chosen Willow Creek. And he was going to find out. Faces in the crowd. The next morning, Ethan tried to pretend everything was normal. He taught his classes, graded quizzes, smiled at students. But every time he caught his reflection in the glass of the classroom door, he saw the pale face of a man who had run through the woods last night, chased by strangers. By evening, the normal act had worn thin. He found himself walking Main Street without a plan, scanning faces. Anyone could be involved, the cashier at the grocery store, the mailman, the old couple walking their dog. That was when he saw the symbol again. It was scratched into the wooden bench outside the post office, small and shallow but unmistakable, the spiral. Ethan's heart thudded. Someone in town had put it there. Looking for something. He turned. Sheriff Barnes stood behind him, hands on his belt. Just fresh air, Ethan said. Barnes followed his gaze to the bench, then back to Ethan. Might be teenagers messing around. Don't let it get in your head. Ethan forced a smile and walked away, but he could feel the sheriff's eyes on him until he turned the corner. That night he met Claire at the bridge again. She was already pacing. "You're not going to like this," she said, handing him a photograph. It showed Sheriff Barnes, standing in front of the very same cabin Ethan had visited, taken years ago. "You think he's involved?" Ethan asked. "I think he knows more than he's saying," Claire said. "And if he's protecting that spiral, you need to be careful." The next day Ethan went to the sheriff's office under the pretense of asking about vandalism. Barnes was at his desk, writing something. When he saw Ethan, he slid the paper into a drawer. "Morning, Cole," Barnes said. Ethan kept his voice steady. "You ever hear about a man named Daniel Rourke?" Barnes's hand stilled on the desk. "Can't say I have." "Why?" "Just a name I came across," Ethan said, trying to read the sheriff's face. Barnes leaned back. "You're digging in places you shouldn't. For your own good, let it go." Ethan left, more certain than ever that the sheriff was involved. That night he and Claire returned to the cabin. This time, Claire brought a black light. When she switched it on, the carved spiral glowed faintly, and so did a series of words scrawled on the walls, invisible in normal light. "The night watches. The door is near." Before Ethan could take it in, there was a noise outside, footsteps crunching in the leaves. Claire grabbed his arm. "Out the back." They slipped through the broken rear window just as the front door creaked open. Two figures entered, flashlights sweeping across the room. Ethan and Claire crouched in the dark, hearts hammering, as the beams passed inches from them. Finally, the figures left. Ethan exhaled. "Who are they?" "Not locals," Claire said. "Which means the spiral brought them here. And we need to find out why." The next day, Willow Creek held its Fall Street Fair. Ethan tried to blend into the crowd, scanning faces for anyone who didn't belong. That was when he saw her, a woman he didn't recognize, standing too still in the middle of the street, staring straight at him. When their eyes met, she smiled, and slowly drew a spiral in the air with her finger. Then she vanished into the crowd. Ethan pushed through people, searching for her, but she was gone. Claire found him near the edge of the fair. "What happened?" "There's someone new in town," Ethan said. "And she knows me." Claire's expression hardened. "Then this is about to get a whole lot worse." Somewhere nearby, the carousel music played a cheerful tune. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that everyone around him, neighbors, students, friends, might be wearing masks. And one of them wanted him to follow the spiral all the way to its end. The edge of the map. Ethan sat at his kitchen table, staring at a stack of old town records. He'd checked them out from the Historical Society that morning, telling the volunteer he was doing research for a class project. The truth was, he wasn't sure what he was looking for, until he found it. It was a surveyor's map from 1874, showing the original layout of Willow Creek. The town square was drawn as a perfect circle, with 8 roads branching off like spokes on a wheel. And in the very center of the circle was a strange marking, a spiral. Ethan's throat went dry. When he showed the map to Claire that night, she whistled low. "Your whole town is built like one big symbol. That can't be a coincidence." "It's not," Ethan said. "Look, the town charter mentions a man named Elias Thorne. He founded Willow Creek, but there's almost nothing about him anywhere else. No birth record, no grave." Claire nodded. "Then that's where we start. Find Thorne, find the truth." The next day Ethan visited the county archives. Dust coated the shelves, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. After an hour of digging, he found a journal belonging to one of the first settlers. The entry from October 17, 1874 made his skin crawl. "Thorne says the night will bless us if we follow the design. He calls it the way. Some are afraid, but he promises we will not be forgotten." That night, Ethan dreamed of a circle of people standing in the town square, torches in hand, chanting as a black shape rose behind them. He woke up sweating, the spiral scar on his wrist burning. Claire was waiting for him outside the school the next morning. "I found something too," she said, holding up a faded photograph. It showed a group of townspeople from the late 1800s, and one man standing slightly apart, tall, sharp-faced, with eyes that seemed to look straight at the camera. "That's got to be Thorne," she said. "And tell me you don't see it, his face looks like yours." Ethan stared at the photo, cold spreading through his chest. That evening they returned to the cabin to compare notes, only to find the front door standing wide open. Inside, the walls were stripped bare, even the glowing words had been scrubbed away. "This was a message," Claire said, her voice tight. "Someone knows what we're doing. And they want us to stop." Before Ethan could respond, a car engine roared outside. Headlights swept across the trees. Claire grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him toward the back window. They barely made it into the woods before two men stepped into the cabin, flashlights cutting across the empty room. One of them spoke into a radio. "They've been here. Find them." Ethan and Claire ran through the trees, branches whipping at their faces, until they burst onto an old service road. Claire bent over, catching her breath. "They're not just watching us anymore," she said. "They're closing in." Ethan looked back toward the dark line of the woods. He could feel it now, the spiral wasn't just a symbol. It was pulling him somewhere. Later that night, unable to sleep, Ethan unrolled the old map again. His eyes followed the roads radiating from the town center, and he noticed something he'd missed before: the 8 roads formed not just a wheel, but a pattern. When he traced the lines with his finger, they connected into one continuous spiral. Willow Creek wasn't just sitting on top of the spiral. It was the spiral. The heart of darkness. Willow Creek felt different now. Ethan noticed it first in the air, heavier somehow, like a storm was always about to break. Streetlights flickered more often. Dogs barked at nothing. People whispered about power outages and strange noises at night. One afternoon, a student stayed after class. "Mr. Cole," she said, twisting the strap of her backpack, "I think something's wrong with my mom. She just stares out the window at night. And she drew this on the kitchen table." She handed him a piece of notebook paper. A perfect spiral stared back at him. Ethan's pulse kicked hard. "Does she remember doing it?" "No." She said she didn't even know how it got there. When the girl left, Ethan sat alone in the classroom, staring at the drawing. The spiral wasn't just following him anymore, it was spreading. That night he told Claire. "It's starting," she said grimly. "The spiral doesn't stay quiet forever. It wakes things up. People start seeing things, hearing things. Then someone vanishes." "Not this time," Ethan said. "I won't let it happen." But even as he said it, a strange warmth coiled in his chest, a voice he didn't recognize whispering that maybe it was already too late. 2 nights later, the first person disappeared. It was Deputy Miller, last seen driving his patrol car down Route 6. They found the car abandoned, headlights still on, driver's door open. On the hood, someone had drawn the spiral in dirt. The whole town buzzed with fear. Sheriff Barnes doubled the night patrols, but when Ethan asked him about the spiral, the sheriff just said, "Stay home after dark." That evening Ethan woke up on his couch, though he didn't remember falling asleep. His wrist was burning, the scar brighter than he'd ever seen it. When he looked out the window, he saw something that made his breath catch. Down the street, 6 people stood in a perfect circle under the street lamp, facing inward, not moving. Ethan grabbed his jacket and ran outside, but by the time he reached them, the street was empty. Claire found him sitting on the curb 20 minutes later. "You're pale as a ghost," she said. "I saw them," Ethan whispered. "Standing there like they were waiting for something." Claire crouched beside him. "They were waiting for you." The next day, Ethan found another clue in the archives, a newspaper clipping from 1896 about a night of silence, when half the town gathered in the square and no one spoke a word until morning. The article ended with a line that made Ethan's blood run cold. "And by dawn, they say, the founder walked among them again." That night Ethan dreamed of the same circle of people, but this time, he was among them. When he woke, dirt clung to his shoes, and he realized with a sick twist of fear that he hadn't just dreamed it. He had been there.